Jennifer Mendyka here with your daily 60 seconds of biblical inspiration for your day. Today I am going to read from Jonah, chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come up before me. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa. And he found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare thereof, and went down into it, to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So we all know how this story goes. Jonah gets on the boat. The Lord calls up a great storm. Jonah ends up throwing himself overboard because he knows that it's the punishment of the Lord, that the wrath of the Lord is coming for him disobeying the Lord. And so he wants to save everybody else on the ship, so he gets off the ship, throws himself overboard, and he's swallowed by a great fish. And he spends 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish. And eventually the fish spits him back out on land, and he goes to Nineveh. And we all laugh at this story. Gee, what was he thinking? Why did he run from God? You can't run from God. God knows where you are all the time. You can't run from God. But how many of us still try to run from God? We might not book a boat to Tarshish, try to run away from Nineveh. But God calls us to things. And sometimes it's a big thing. Sometimes he's calling us to a mission field. Sometimes he's calling us to, be a preacher or a teacher. Sometimes he's calling people to be prophets. And sometimes we know that he's calling us, and we try to run from it, or we try to ignore it. Usually we're not running physically from it, but we try to ignore it. Yeah, God, I'm just, I think you got the wrong person. I'm not going to pay attention to this. Or, I don't think I can do that, so I'm going to do this polar opposite thing instead. Because if I do this opposite thing, it'll prove that I'm not capable of doing the thing you're calling me to do. We have a whole generation of Jonahs out there, sorry. We have a whole generation of Jonahs out there who have been called. They've been called to share the gospel with their neighbor. They've been called to tell someone their testimony. They've been called to do something for the Lord. And instead of embracing that call and walking in that call, they've tried to run away from it. Well, I can't tell my neighbor about the gospel. They'll think I'm weird. I can't share my testimony. People would never believe it anyway, and they'll think I'm just crazy. We act like Jonah all the time. Anytime we turn our back on what God is asking us to do, we are acting exactly like Jonah. But God gives us enough grace and enough mercy that he doesn't throw us in a fish. We need to stop being Jonah. Stop running from what God is calling us to do because we think we're not good enough, or we think people will see us as weird, or we think people will look at us and just not want to be us. Whoa, they're too weird. I can't do that, God. People will look at me strange. I can't do that, God. People won't listen to me anyway. Who am I? Don't be a Jonah. Embrace what God is asking you to do. And even if you think you can't do it, God, I don't have the ability for this. Guess what? If God's calling you, he will equip you for that call. If he wants you to do something, he will give you the means to do it. God's not going to throw an impossible task before you. That's not what he does. So embrace whatever God is asking you to do. Embrace it and carry it out to the best of your abilities. And if you don't think you have any abilities, then ask God for help, because He will help you. We miss out on so many opportunities because instead of embracing what God's asking us to do, we turn and we run from it. Don't be Jonah. Embrace what God is asking you to do. Have a wonderful day. God bless. Goodbye.